Chapter 1. Early Studies. John Calvin was born on July 10th, 1509, in Noyon, a town in the northern part of France. He was the second of either 3 or 4 brothers. His mother, Joan, died when he was still very young. His father, Gerard, worked for the Roman Catholic Bishop of Noyon, taking care of legal matters. This job allowed him to give his sons a good education, financed by the church, first through the private tutor of a noble family, and later in college. In those days, children went to college when they were still quite young. John Calvin probably started when he was 13 or 14. He was always an excellent student, even when the schools he attended were very strict. At Montaigu College, for example, he had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and study or read all day with almost no time to rest. This taught him to use his time wisely and work hard, something that he did for the rest of his life. At that time, parents usually decided what their children would do when they grew up. From the start, Gerard thought that his son should become a priest. After John's graduation, however, he suddenly changed his mind. He'd come to some disagreements with the bishop, and knowing that lawyers can have a very profitable career, he told John that he should study law instead. Obeying his father, John attended the best schools in the country and received a license to practice law. After Gerard's death, he moved back to Paris to study what he liked best, the ancient languages of the Bible, Hebrew and Greek, and the great writings of the past. In Paris, John Calvin read the writings of reformers like Martin Luther, who reminded the church of the original teachings of the Bible. Mankind is saved only by grace and only through faith. The Roman Catholic Church, the only established church of that time, taught that in order to be saved, people had to do good works. Calvin said that it was very difficult for him to disagree with teachings that he had accepted for so long, but he knew that the Bible was the only truth. In his writing, he said that it was God who changed his heart and mind, giving him a great desire to make progress in the truth he had just found. The Roman Catholic Church did not like the writings of Luther and other reformers, and it did all it could to stop people from reading and believing them. In 1533, Nicholas Cop, the head of the University of Paris and a friend of Calvin, gave a speech which sounded so much like the teachings of Luther that some college and state officers became angry. They did not want these new teachings to be taught openly. Things became so dangerous that Cop had to leave the country. Some thought that Calvin himself had written the speech, so they went to his college quarters to arrest him, but he was not there. They searched his room and took some of his letters, which identified the names of some of his friends. Calvin knew that it was time for him to move on too, so he left Paris disguised as a farmer. Calvin spent the next few months in different French cities as a guest of friends, including the king's own sister, Marguerite d'Angoulême, who supported the reformers. Right at that time, a group of French Christians decided to protest against the Roman Catholic Church by making posters describing how the Roman Catholic way of worshipping God was wrong and not based on the scriptures. When people woke up on the morning of October 18th, 1534, the posters were everywhere. There was even one in the king's bedroom. Obviously, the king, Francis I, was not pleased to find his privacy invaded. More important, he had made an agreement with the Roman Catholic Pope and could not risk losing this new and powerful friend. He sent his guards to find the men responsible for the posters. More than 200 people were arrested and 20 killed, including one of Calvin's friends. Calvin decided that it was time to leave France and left on horseback with his roommate and friend, Louis Dutillet. Taking 2 servants with them, Calvin and his friends started out to Basel, a university town in what was then called the Holy Roman Empire, where Nicholas Cop had found refuge. One of these servants, however, did not behave honestly. On their way to Basel, he robbed his masters of all their money and escaped with their best horse,